In today's video lesson, I'm going to teach how to play a 1-4-1-5-7-1 progression in both hands. Let's start by just introducing that chord progression in the key of E major. So let's take a look at the right hand first. Since we're in E major, we're going to start by lining up our hands on an E 5-finger pattern, like so. So 1 through 5 on E through B. Notice that F and G are both sharp. Now for the first chord, we're just going to play our first, third, and fifth fingers together. That's going to be our 1 chord. Again, 1, 3, 5, make a 1 chord. The next chord is going to be a 4 chord. It's going to be spelled E, A, C sharp. So from the 1 chord, the top 2 notes move up by step diatonically. So notice that the middle note moves up to A by a half step, and the top note moves up to C sharp by a whole step. We're also going to finger this chord 1, 3, 5. Take a minute and try practicing back and forth between the 1 chord with 1, 3, 5 to the 4 chord with 1, 3, 5 and back. 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5. Okay, now after we return to the 1 chord from the 4, the 5-7 chord is next. For this chord, the common tone stays the same in our 5th finger. So this B is going to be held constant, while these bottom 2 notes are going to move away from each other by half step. So the E with our thumb is going to move down to D sharp with our thumb, and that G sharp is going to move up by half step to an A with 4. So we spell it D sharp, A, B with 1, 4, 5. So back to the 1 chord, 1, 3, 5 to 1, 4, 5. 1, 3, 5, 1, 4, 5. Okay, now let's go ahead and try putting all the pieces together in just the right hand, giving each chord 4 counts apiece. So, 1 chord, 2, 3, 4, 4 chord, 2, 3, 4, 1 chord, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 2, 3, 4, 1 chord, 2, 3, 4. Okay, at this point, I would practice going from the 1 to the 4, and then the 1 to the 5 and back. And then when you can do that in a few keys, try doing the whole progression in a few keys. But I would practice all of this in the right hand before I moved on in the video. Okay, next let's try to take a look at the left hand. Remember, since we're in E major, we're going to start with an E major 5-finger pattern, just like we did with the right hand. So we'll put our 5th finger on E, our 1st finger on B, and then fill in the notes in between. 4 gets F sharp, 3 gets G sharp, 2 gets A. So that's our 5-finger pattern. To form the 1 chord, we're going to play 5, 3, 1. All at once. 5, 3, and 1. Now the next chord will be the 4 chord. So just like before, our top 2 notes, i.e. the G sharp and the B, are going to move from G sharp and B up by a step each. So the G sharp will move to A and the B will move to C sharp. Like so. So we have 5, 2, 1 this time. We use 2 because that's where the second finger is resting anyway, is on A. in our 5-finger pattern, and then we just extend the 1 up from the B to the C sharp. Try going back and forth a few times. 1 chord with 5-3-1, 4 chord with 5-2-1. Okay, once we return to the 1 chord from the 4, we need to figure out our 5-7 chord. So remember that the common tone will be held in the top of the chord. That's the B. We'll hold that with our first finger. Now these bottom 2 notes are going to move apart from one another by half step. So the G sharp will move up to A, and the E will move down to D sharp. I finger this 5-2-1. So 5-3-1, 5-2-1, and back. Okay, practice that a few times back and forth before moving on. Now let's try to put all of the chords together in sequence. So 4 counts apiece. 1 chord, 1, 3, 4, 4 chord, 2, 3, 4, 1 chord, 2, 3, 4, 5-7, 2, 3, 4, and back to 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, good. Now that we've done that, I would try practicing the 1 to the 4, the 1 to the 5, and then eventually the whole progression in a few different keys before moving on. Really get this down in both the right hand and the left hand alone before moving on in the video. Okay, now that we've done both hands individually, let's try putting the hands together. So again, our first step, we're going to check the hand position. We should be starting in an E major 5-finger position. So the 2 hands should look like this. Okay. Now from here we're going to play our 1, 3, 5 in both hands for the 1 chord. Okay, that should feel pretty symmetrical and pretty easy as it comes right out of the 5-finger pattern. 5-3-1 or 1-3-5. Okay, from here, remember that we're going to move the top 2 notes of the chord up by step, diatonically. So the B is going to move up a whole step to C sharp, and the G sharp will move up by whole step, or by half step, actually, to A. The right hand will be 5-3-1, the left hand will be 5-2-1. And then back. One more time. Okay, now after we've returned to the 1 chord, we've got to do the 5-7. Remember that our common tone here is the top note of the triad. So we're going to keep 5 held down and 1 held down in the left hand. And then our bottom 2 notes of the 1 chord are going to move apart from one another by half step, like so. Remember that we do 5-3-1 to 1-4-5 in the right hand, and we do 5-3-1 to 5-2-1 in the left hand. Together. And back. Okay? Now that we've done that, let's try to put the whole sequence together in rhythm. 4 counts apiece. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now I would go through and I would review how to do that hands together in several different keys. You really need to practice the different keys to make sure that those moves from chord to chord are comfortable in a variety of different black and white key settings. And with that, you now know how to play a 1-4-1-5-7-1 progression in both hands.